Hi, Terry.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I recognize you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Schwinn. I'm the first vice president, president-elect at Fayetteville for the Menominee Falls Optimist Club. I just want to welcome everyone this morning on this very special day that we have today for our veterans. I want to welcome our people on Zoom this morning. Thank you for joining us. Wide world and all over the country, I believe we are this morning. As usual, as Rick would say. What I'd like to do is, if I could, please have everybody stand this morning for the prayer.
Dear Lord, we know that freedom isn't free, and a special few pay the price for many. We give thanks not only for Optimist Club veterans, but for all the men and women who have served and sacrificed their time, comfort, and health to protect us and our many freedoms. We pray that they know how valued and appreciated they really are. And please bless their families for their many sacrifices as well. And lastly, we ask for your protection over all who are serving now and ask you to bring them home safely to their families. In your name we pray. Amen.
You can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we have a club member of ours who would like to sing the national anthem this morning. Wendy Sue for you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free? And the home of the brave.
It's a great way to start our meeting off this morning. I just wanted to mention too, Wendy has brought some pre-wrapped snacks for everybody this morning. If you're hungry or you feel like you'd like to help yourself, she brought those for everybody. Mr. Foster.
Yes.
Joe Meister extraordinaire.
A pastor, a doctor, and an engineer were waiting one morning for a particularly slow group of golfers. The engineer says, "What's with these guys? We must have been waiting here for 15 minutes. The doctor says, "Well, I don't know, but I've never seen such ineptitude." The pastor, he says, "Hey, here comes the greenskeeper. Let's have a word with him."
dramatic pause. Hi, George. Say, what's with that group ahead of us? They're rather slow, aren't they? And George responded, oh, yes. That's a group of blind firefighters. They lost their sight saving our clubhouse from a fire last year, so we always let them play for free anytime. The group is silent for a minute. The pastor says, that's so sad. I think I'll say a special prayer for them this evening. The doc says, good idea, and I'm going to contact my ophthalmologist buddy and see if there's anything we can do for them. And the engineer says, why can't these guys play at night?
All righty, Jim. You never seem to fail on us. So thank you so much. What I'd like to do is I guess I would like to get started with the program right away, and we'll get into things. And I'd like to welcome our speaker up here this morning. Terry Marcoux is another member of our club, and I'd like to say some things with regards to veterans and some of the benefits. So Terry, if you can please come up.
Good morning. I'm not going to sing and I'm not going to say a joke. So, Jerry asked me to just talk a little bit about the benefits. But before that's not going to take too long. But I just want to tell you how I feel about veterans. Growing up in the 60s, the war, Kennedy, Johnson were escalating the war. People were going over to Vietnam. And I had high school buddies, I'd be a freshman or sophomore in school, and you hear about guys who graduated from Vietnam. A lot of them came back, some did not, but it was serious. It was serious. When I graduated from high school, I went to college, and when you went to college, you got a 2S program, meaning that the government couldn't touch you to go into the service. If you did not go to college, you were 1A, and usually you would be able to work for a year, and then you would be drafted. When you got drafted, you were in the States for a year, and then in Vietnam for a year. And I remember my brother graduated from college in '69, and he knew he was going to get drafted. And my dad, who was a veteran of the Navy, tried to say, why don't you enlist into the Navy? And my brother said, that's 4 years, Dad. And I said, yeah, but it's safer. It was actually safer to enlist in the Navy or the Air Force than to go in the Army. My brother said, no, I'm just going to volunteer to go. And I can remember when he left the service. And a lot of our friends, I'd be in college and they said, I remember Mike Kelly was from Baltimore and was killed. I went to school with Mike. Mike was 2 years older. And, it really hits home. It was hard for people to go into service. I would say a lot of the guys did not want to go, but they sacrificed themselves. 2 years is a long time to go into the service, and they sacrificed themselves to go. And I appreciate all you guys, because my wife makes quilts for veterans, and she gives a quilt to the veteran. There's a little speech she says, and she says, welcome home. And a lot of these veterans never want. So, thank you for your service. As far as benefits, as a funeral director, when a veteran dies, we ask the family, military honors. All they have to do is bring their DD-214, which is an honorable discharge. And we contact the men in Madison and arrange for military honors, which is the caps, the holding of the flag, and becomes so it's very simple. Now, some veterans choose to go to a national cemetery. Wood National is all built up. that the only people buried there are people who have loved ones there that have a space available. And, or if you're in active service, you can be buried there. Otherwise, it's the cemetery in Union Grove, Southern Wisconsin Veterans Memorial Cemetery, which is excellent. It's 50 minutes from here. And I think that's, sometimes people say, I don't want to go 50 minutes to the cemetery. But they do a great job. Savings, it's worth $4,000 because everything is free. The grave, or the niche, or the, that's all free. The opening and closing, if it's a burial, the liner, the vault, per se. So there's a savings of $4,000. And I think today people will say, we're just going to scatter dad's ashes. No, not talking as a person, not as a funeral director, per se. I think there should be a resting place for everybody. I mean, if you're just going to scatter the ashes, he's a veteran, why don't you place those at a veteran's cemetery? It's free. Now, the only charge if you're married is the spouse. Again, you can save $2,000 to $4,000, depending if it's premature burial. But the spouse has to pay, currently it's $807. That is all the spouse has to pay. So it's a great benefit. The veterans do get very good benefits, but they deserve it. And again, it's real easy. You can pre-plan that. You can get everything set up at Union Grove. So when there's a death, all the funeral director has to do is call and get everything set up. But again, it's a service. And now when we have military honors, we have active Army, active Air Force, active Marines that do the folding of the flag and the presentation. The local post does the firing of the guns. They're getting older and everything, but so they don't do the folding of the flag. But again, I can't say enough about the veterans. And this kneeling of the flag, but everyone has their personal viewpoints. They should have gone over there and talked. Okay. Thank you very much.
We got time for questions?
Sure.
Any questions? Yes, Karen.
Is the Veterans Cemetery a free and option?
Yes, it is. If you live in King, Wisconsin, in the middle of the state, that's for veterans also, yes.
And that's not free.
No. It isn't.
And my wife had a question, and I have a question, trying to play together. He wants to know if he passes first, or wants to go to Union Grove, that's her question. My question is, if I get remarried, what do I do with my second wife?
You don't have to worry about
And I might be going first when it looks.
He wants to give them the bad news.
The first question, but what happens if he passes?
It can be very good, yes. Because a lot of times, like at Wood, the spouse is buried there, the veteran's still living. That would be great.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. Terry, you keep that up. You might not make it out of the meeting.
I know, I said, I'm right now.
Okay, so we'd like to continue to keep moving on with our program this morning. We have a number of our veterans that are part of our club, and just the fact that Jerry mentioned to me yesterday, I don't know how many of you knew this, but this 160 plus members I think we have, that's roughly 10% of our club is made up of veterans, and a good number of them are sitting here this morning. If I may just quickly, before we get into the rest of our program, Jerry just mentioned some of the veterans that we did want to have here this morning that could not make it this morning. Larry Barbera, who served in the Army, Walt Wachowski, who served in the Air Force, Tony Bayward, who served in the Army, Greg Goss, also served in the Army, John Seymour was in the Marines, Carl Trapp in the Army, Tom Wagner, the Army, Tom Wagner, the Air Force, Bob Wenzel, the Air Force, and Ed Beth in the Army. So let's give them all a round of applause. And then I'd like to bring Jerry up here if I could, because we'd like to get into the rest of the program here with the veterans that we do have here this morning. And Jerry would like to say a few words before we get started.
I have a bio on those veterans that were done. I got 3 sentences in each one, and they're happy and they're sad. And I'll get to that when we're all done talking. But we're each going to take 2 or 3 minutes to talk about experiences. They sent a letter out, memorable experiences, good experiences, bad experiences, whatever. So we're each going to take 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll just take turns. We also have a portable microphone if you don't want to come out. But for me, I went in 71, 72. I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and then I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia. You have to go through 8 weeks of basic training, 8 weeks of advanced training, and then they give you your assignment. And the way it works out is 150 guys standing in a row, and they go through. And Lamb was next to me, and Lamb misaligned it alphabetical, and they go Lamb, Vietnam. The guy next to me, they said Vietnam. When they cut my name off, it was Korea. And my knees just sunk when I say Korea. I was so happy. And I called my mom, and she cried because I wasn't going to Germany. I was crying because I wasn't going to Vietnam. And but then we got the day of going, you come home for a few days and then you leave. So I came home for a few days, and we went to the airport with my mom and dad. And I'm going to Korea. I'm going to be gone a year. It's Vietnam War's going on. They tell you how they should move people around if they get short. They go to Okinawa and Korea and ship people in. So you get to the airport and you say your goodbyes and your hugs and stuff. And I took a couple steps and I turned around to say something. And my mom and dad never saw me, but my mom was just sobbing, and my dad had his head buried in her, and he was crying. I never seen my dad cry before, and I never got the words out. And I got on the plane. I looked through that little hole that's all foggy and stuff and tried to see it. But on that plane, at that moment, I promised myself I was going to come home alive. No matter what it took, I was going to come home alive. And I made a vow that no matter what happened to me each day, if I was alive at the end of the day, it was a good day. If I was alive at the end, and there were great days and there were some awful days. But at the end of the day, when I speak to the Lord, it was a good day because I'm alive. And, the other thing too is I know I came back, and veterans are treated differently now than we were then. I came back and went down to Korea. It's gone for 16 months. There's 2 of my buddies playing Donkey Kong. And I can remember one mistake, he still lives in the Falls. And I walked in, goes, Jerry, hey Jerry, how you doing? It's good to see you. He went right back and played Donkey Kong. You're gone 16 months. You missed parties, weddings, funerals, births, yes. You missed it all. And all they go, hey, how you doing? And that was it. And a little bit different now for veterans. But I will tell you that, wrap this up, that Olympic athletes will say it's so great to represent your country. It's a special feeling to represent your country. You can win the Masters, but you win a gold medal in Olympics, or just represent your country. And every one of us that put the uniform on represented this country. And it's a very special feeling, especially when you're overseas, that you represent America, the land of the brave and the home of the free. So that's it. I want to thank you all for coming. And you out there, Chris Forrest on cable TV, thank you. And I want to end on a happy note. Terry talked about going 50 miles down Union Road. I'm more worried about going up than going down. That's well, thank you.
Jerry, thank you. And for those that didn't, I don't know if you mentioned it, but you were in the Army. So we're going to keep this rolling. So next, I'd like to welcome up Larry Podolsky. Larry.
I got drafted in January 1968 and wasn't real happy about the idea of entering the Army. I wasn't a volunteer, but ultimately I was a volunteer. I must admit that I wasn't a brave person and ultimately enlisted, which meant I got to go to the Army school of my choice as opposed to wherever they would send me. And needless to say, in January of 1968, going to infantry school wasn't something you really wanted to do. So I ended up in personnel. And my thinking was right because by June 1st of that year, I had orders for Vietnam. Got over there and got assigned to the 4th PO group. What would that be? Psychological operations. But I wasn't a psychological operator. I ultimately was a personnel specialist, and I got assigned to the personnel office in Saigon. The group had 4 battalions, one in each of the operational groups for areas of Vietnam, and then group headquarters in Saigon, which is where I was. And worked in personnel for a year, and lo and behold, late in the year, we had had 2 killed in action during the course of the first 10 months that I had been there. And both of them were shortly after I arrived, and I didn't know anything about it, because other people in the office took care of it. But anybody killed in action for the entire group, ultimately it was processed in our office in Saigon. Anyway, in May, I was doing the tasks that ultimately, when the word came in that we had 2 people killed in action in Da Nang battalion way up to the north, I had to prepare the paperwork for their KIA, and did so. And it's certainly something that stayed with me, no question about it. The rest of my tasks were very mundane, regular old clerical work, albeit for 10 hours a day most days, but pretty mundane stuff. Sending people on R&Rs, for instance. Anyway, by middle of June, I was back home after my year was up, and in late June, Life magazine had a version that said the faces of the American dead in Vietnam, 1 week's toll. There were 242 soldiers killed during that 1 week that they chose, and in the magazine they printed the pictures of all 242. Well, my parents subscribed to the magazine, and so out of curiosity, I wasn't sure whether it was the week that I had processed killed in action for, but so reading through the pictures, I didn't know the faces, I did not know the people who were killed. They were in Da Nang, I was in Saigon. They were intelligence analysts, so no, they weren't combatants. They just were in the wrong place when a rocket hit. Anyway, ultimately, I found a name that I recognized, and then came to realize this is his picture on the front cover. So, kind of has stayed with me, a minor clerical task, but kind of the fact that he was on the front cover of Life magazine, certainly stayed with me the rest of my life. I did return because of that three-year commitment that comes with enlisting. I came back and spent another year and a half at Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indiana, which was a nice place, because I could drive home every few weeks and see Linda. Who I wasn't married to at the time, but ultimately would marry her long after I got out of the service in 1971. So that's pretty much what the military was to me. I would tell you it was a positive experience. I felt like I was able to make a good contribution with the skills that I have, and I also never felt the negatives that I have so often heard about the Vietnam War. I didn't feel people look down on me when I returned or anything like that. It was just kind of routine. I was happy to be home, and that's about the story.
Thank you, Larry. Next, I'd like to have Tex come on up, please.
Well, good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to thank Terry for a great presentation. He's really good at putting this all together. Well, I started back in the military, went to the University of Wisconsin-La and like everybody here, Larry, my brother, lived together for 4 years. He comes in the story at the end. Remember it. But anyways, I think 1972, at a high draft number, so I knew I wasn't going to get drafted. The draft was still in Vietnam. My parents were getting on my dad was 35 years. Wisconsin National Guard, I could try to look at ROTC. Ended up in ROTC with 200 other freshmen. The draft ended. I graduated with 6. And so many people wanted to stay for long and go into service at that time. So I went in and went infantry. The chance was able, I came out of formation one time, I may want to join volunteer for special forces. I said, no, I'll try that. Then I went out to special forces training in Fort Bragg. And nothing was going on that time, it's Carter administration, didn't want to get any kind of battles or anything like that. So, but what happened? What came along called the Iranian hostage crisis. We all know that, where the Iranians stormed the embassy, took a bunch of our embassy employees, and 51 of them, I think, were held hostage for 44 days. First attempt, the first attempt they tried to go in, didn't work out. It's called Operation Desert Claw, and let's see, we had 8 servicemen killed in that, trying to go in and rescue them. Well, the military is not going to stop, and they got hostages, so they started up another rescue operation, and so I found myself sitting in an interview with civilian people I thought were CIA, and they said, you want to volunteer for a top secret mission? We can't tell you what it's going to do. I said, I'm simple. I said, well, I'll try it. So I got selected. About 30 other of us from Special Forces in Fort Bragg. They said, okay, show up in civilian clothes, have your M16, 1 o'clock in the morning, you'll have a plane come and take it. So we show up there, see when the 30 rolls in, doesn't turn off its engine, drop the tailgate, and we all run on the plane, and it takes off. For who knows where we went? 8 hours, we're flying. Didn't know where we're going. We landed, good morning, we're in the desert. What the heck are we? We get hauled off to this encampment, and you got all these people in civilian clothes, and the leaders would tell us, okay, we're someplace out in the western United States. We're going to put you through about 30 days of highly intensive training to see if we want you to be part of this mission. We did that for 30 days, very vigorous, like you're going through a very hard physical and mental training. Well, I got selected to stay on. We trained hard, we rehearsed with all the Air Force, and military, and helicopters, and we just did a lot of rehearsals. We had top secret briefings on where the hostages were, how we would go in there, all these different things. Phyllis Carter wanted to win this election year. Just like election came. Carter didn't get reelected, Reagan did. Well, we kind of knew that nothing was going to happen. So things were still training in case they were going to kill any of the hostages. The U.S. wanted to respond. But came Christmas time, they said, okay, it doesn't look like we're going to do anything. We're going to send you all wherever you want to go for Christmas. I said, okay, I'll go home. I haven't been home for 3 years. I live here in town. See mom and dad for Christmas. So I come home at the airport. My mom doesn't recognize me. We're in civilian clothes. I haven't shaved for 6 months. Big bushy hair, beard, real long hair, red hair. That was anything but a lieutenant in the Army. Wondering what I did. I said, well, sometimes we train long. They don't make a shave or cut our hair for 8 months. It's kind of a long time to train. But anyways, the end of the story is, as I said, I knew Larry for a long time and I hadn't seen him for 2 years. I got dressed and I knew he, owned DBGB's honey bucket with his brother. I think I'll go out and see himself. So I walk in the bar, it's Christmas, busy, packed, the finals, bar stool there at the end of the bar. Here I am, blonde hair, bushy beard, I know he's not gonna recognize me. I'm sitting there and Larry's working hard with all these customers, and he finally makes his way down to me, he says, "Hey Tex, when did you get back?" I couldn't even surprise Larry, but that was kind of like you said, with coming back and meeting friends and being going to the bar. First time me and Larry spent till Sunday, I think, talking about stories. So that was my most, I guess, memorable experience. I was 31 years. I never had to go to combat. So I just wanted to train a lot of people, especially in my later years when I was a colonel. I oversaw a lot of troops heading to Afghanistan, Iraq, overseeing their training before they got deployed. But the hardest part, and this goes back to Terry's business, is when I had soldiers that came back home in that great casket, and they were putting on the funeral for them, which is always a great ceremony. The hardest part was getting that flag that was folded in the casket. And being a commander of the troops that left, having to hand that over to the spouse, the wife, and the kid. There was nothing you could say they could use. There's nothing you could say that will make that husband home. So we have to thank him, all of them, for their sacrifices. So that's the worst part, I think, that I had in the military, but had a great career. And I guess I just enjoy doing that.
Thank you, Jack. Keeping things moving here. Danny Shepherd, please, come on up.
Right out of high school, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, in anticipation of getting out in the law enforcement. That was 86 to 98 was when I served 4 years. Went out to boot camp in San Diego. After that, I was stationed at Yarmouth Naval Shipyard. There was a Marine Corps detachment that was switching over to a FAST company, which is a fleet anti-terror security unit, what it's called. Primary mission to guard nuclear material for submarines that were being refueled and defueled, because that was weapons grade material, because there was attack. So someone wanted to get hands on that material, we had to guard those bases. So I was out there for about 2 years, and then I requested to go to the East Coast. Went down to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and I was with the 2nd Marine Division, 1st Battalion of Marines. I did one float overseas on the old USS Iwo Jima. It was an interesting adventure, living on a ship. It was a smaller aircraft carrier for helicopters. I had some very unique experiences on the ship and training overseas. We went to several different countries: France, Italy, Spain, Tunisia, Israel, and we trained in most of those countries. Thanks to the Lord that while I was in, we didn't have, it was one of a peaceful time in the world this week. So I was not in combat. We did lose one attack helicopter on a training mission. The pilots died that night. It was Thanksgiving night, which was a very sad night. And that was basically my experience in the Marine Corps. I did my 4 years. I considered staying on, but at the time they were downsizing the military, and I couldn't even be honest. I was in the infantry. I was a rifleman, and at the time I could not be enlisted for that MLS. traditional Chesapeake. So we had to laterally move, and my father was back there with a small business, and he wanted me to come in. And so instead of going into law enforcement when I got out, I went into just my father for about 10 years, and then I transitioned from that into Navy firefighting, into firefighting for the last 20 years currently, where I am. I started in Butler as a volunteer, went to Falls for about a year and a half before I was going to retired being on the and that's why I do that from the But we've been out here for over 25 years in the fall, and bought this home, and we absolutely love it out here. I'm honored to be sitting with these up over here.
I'm making advice.
And I was just going to mention that, and my two daughters are in the Army National Guard.
Next, listen, I did see Larry walk in, so Larry, be remiss if you would like to, after Carolyn comes up, if you'd like to come up and say a few words, we'd like to have you come up after she is done, if that's okay. Okay.
We're gonna give you a seat up front. You don't have to signal with the civilians.
First of all, my name is Larry Barbera. I've been an Optimist member now going on about 20 years, and I congratulate all of you that organized this event today. There's a lot of things that are going on TV, etc., that reminds us of how important all of these people who have served their country over time to make this place a place that we really, really love and fortunately enjoyed. 1968, just before the Tet Offensive, I joined a National Guard unit in the state of Wisconsin in hopes of transferring to the regular Army. Well, as it turned out, when I got done with my training, my advanced training, and I'm in Fort Hood, Texas at the time, I tried to get to leave the National Guard and join the Army. It was now late 1968. They were bombing. As you know, the Tet Offensive occurred. It was really, really a rough time. They did not let me go because I was property of the state of Wisconsin. So, as it turned out, I went to officer training school in Tacoma, Wisconsin. While going to school in Eau Claire, a place called the Army Military Academy, and graduated from there, became a second lieutenant, and 6 years goes by relatively fast, and so I stuck around, then it's 10 years, and then it's 16 years, and then I was now a captain, and then I joined or transferred to the Army Reserve out at Richards, from the Richards Street Armory to with our people in Silver Spring, and spent another 5 or 6 years there, and promoted to major, and that was my final rank. For the most part of the last 10 years, I was a public affairs officer, both for the Wisconsin National Guard and for the Army Reserve. In doing so, I was kind of an aide to the general, both generals, and I had a chance to go a lot of places. I was the escort to our Soldier of the Year for about 6 years to the Pentagon, and you get to the upper stories of the Pentagon, and you really see how massive the whole organization is. So I was delighted to be part of those situations. It really gave me a lot of terrific experiences. Now it's 22 years, and I retired at that time. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. All right. And last veteran we have here, Carolyn, if you'd like to
the best for last.
Okay, so tell me, you wanna go?
No.
He does. He's coming.
No, I'm done. You're gonna be next.
Are you sure? Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Dr. Carolyn G. Anderson, and hi, Mr. Klein. Hi, go way back. So when Jim started to share his joke about pastor, doctor, and then he said engineer, I first thought he was talking about me. I'm not an engineer, but my husband is. And so I thought you were talking about me too. I thought your joke was about me. I really truly did become all you can be. So I'm gonna stick. One of the things you learn in the military is to stick to the time. So I'm gonna put my phone on, just so I stick to my 3 minutes, because I'm a speaker and I'm a television host. So 1 second, put my phone on, 3 minutes, and I'm done. So Dr. Carolyn Anderson, and my branch is U.S. Army. My best memorable moments are pretty much every day at basic training. So I went into the military and I had hot pink shoes, hot pink nighties. I didn't know I was gonna wear green. I'm wearing green today. Everything about me was girly. It was hot pink. I was a cheerleader in high school. Then I cheered for the Milwaukee Bucks just a little until I was injured. I went to UW Milwaukee for my first semester, straight out of high school. It was way too expensive. And I remember there was a drill sergeant that came and spoke to us in high school my senior year and said, you can be all you can be. And that stuck with me. So I called him. He was at Richards and Capitol. I think the Army is still there. And I enlisted and I went into the military. I actually served 8 years. So I went there, again, very fashionable, and that's how I went in. So I became the joke. My drill sergeants would say, oh, here comes Miss America, and here comes Miss Wisconsin. And so whenever it was time to go into the field, as I called it, or go get training, whether it was grenades or firearms and stuff, they would say, let Miss America go first. And I was always the one to go first. Now, fast forward today, I actually am today Mrs. Wisconsin in the pageant. I've been in several pageants and actually won everything, mostly because of my military as well. Because one of the things it taught me was how to be a great leader. And leadership is a behavior. It's not a title. It is how you act. It has taught me, and I was a medic. So I was a combat medic and a medical specialist, and then I became a military nurse. Fort Sam Houston. I wish I could be at Fort Sam Houston. I love Fort Sam. I love San Antonio. Love going just close enough to Mexico, but not really right across, because we get the weekend passes and we can go down to the Alamo. That's as far as you can go. But we wanted to venture because the Mexicans were selling necklaces. And of course, I want to look pretty, right? Going back to the military. So every single day was an amazing day for me. It was awesome because I got to be all I really could be, and I was defending, and we were green, and that was what just mattered to me. It wasn't the color. We knew you were Black, Asian, whatever, but it was like we were green, and whoever is beside me, that's my battle buddy. Whoever you're in the bunkers with, that's who you're with. It was just green, and I loved every moment of it, to the point where they would wake me up so early, because again, I was just like this, American joke. Woke me up so early to go run. We had to qualify, run 2 miles. Did you run?
A little bit.
2 miles, and I think from my age at that time, because I was 18, you had to do like 60 or 120 push-ups, whatever it was. It pushed me so hard that, for the joke, I also carried the flag, so I was the guide on barrier. I ran track and field in Wisconsin. I went to state. So all this thing they're doing, one thing I recognize, and this is why I became a neuropathic physician, is that everything is in the mind. It's a mind game. I realized that they were trying to break me or break a civilian out of me. And I recognized right away that if I can play the game, then I can win. And that's all I did. I played the game, I participated, everything that they told me to drop and give them 20, I would get back up and say, is that all? And, you know, I was a little smart mouth back then, just a little, just a little. And the day we had our qualifications, the 2 miles, I sprinted. I have a little lightning bolt in me, I guess. And I sprinted that, and I still to this day have my medal for winning, and I lapped the males, lapped the females. I did over 150 push-ups and 300 sit-ups. And sharpshooter, everything I did, I excelled in whatever I needed to do. And in my closing, one of the things we were asked to share is what would be the thing that you didn't like most about the military. And what I don't like about the military is actually now. It is being a veteran. I am a chancellor. I really do become all I can be. I'm a physician. I'm a chancellor of a university. I own 3 pageants, and I have a neuropathic practice where we help those who have PTSD. I study the mind and the brain, so I understand what's taking place in the head. But what I don't like is now, is today. So actually, after I leave here, I believe it's Channel 12, I go to do a press release because I have launched a scholarship program that we are looking for donations for Cayenne International University for our veterans to earn a degree while getting mental health care at the same time simultaneously, get a whole bachelor's degree in entrepreneurship or business for just 1 year. So starting January 11th, we are opening up because there's so many. I thought when I came out, because I was in the military, everything was going to be great. I had thought I was going to have jobs. I actually was homeless 5 times, nowhere to go. And so that's what I don't like about it. It's now, it's not then. It is the way veterans are treated. And yes, we do have benefits, but we don't have access as we should. For someone who stood for the country and fought, we don't have the access in the country that we need to. And so I am a leader that just does not speak something, I do something by behavior. So I've chosen to have a scholarship for 100 Wisconsin vets to be able to get a degree and also mental health services, nothing to their cost, a computer, everything fully virtual. And that's what we're launching today on Veterans Day and doing a press release. And then the school starts in January for 1 year. Because in closing, what I found is even though we're military and we have the training, what we don't have is the paper. We have our DD-214, we have all the credentials, honorable discharge, but we don't have an actual degree, or I should say most don't have the actual degree, and that's what we're offering. So thank you for listening, and I have 2 seconds and I'm done. Thank you.
Tom, do you want to use the handheld or do you want to come on up? All right. Well, and our last veteran of the morning here is Tom Dubin.
Good morning. Fellow Optimist. Reading the bad news before I read the good news. Probably the last meeting I'll be able to make because I avoided pancreatic cancer 7 years ago. COVID-19. Now, lung cancer has taken over, and so I've just got a matter of weeks to go. And I've enjoyed tremendously being a member of this club. Now the good things. Let's talk about the my service. Phil Farley, who was a classmate of mine, his nephew was Chris Farley. He said I was funnier. I wanted to be than Chris. So that was quite honest. I started out when I was 17, enlisted in the reserves. And for 6 months, and I did my usual goof offs. Like when I was in the motor pool, mortar sergeant said to me, and they were standing over at the fire keeping warm, he says, "Who are you?" And I said, "Tom Newton." And he said, "What do you do?" "Well, I'm one of your mechanics." I've been there a week and he hadn't seen me yet. So he put me down at his desk. And from that day on, I ran the motor pool until I left the Army. That's a duty fighter. Because he couldn't even spell my signature to his. But, for that, that was a basic, you were always told never to volunteer for anything. That was tough. And so I volunteered to be a driver, because that was easier than watching. So I ended up driving bunch of officers out to inspect night training. And one of them was a Lieutenant Adams. And years later, and I left the Army, who I'm working with, is Major Adams. So, same man. You never meet those people that you knew you'll never meet them again. It does happen. I had a very good time. Kept the gas chamber actually panicked because I had never been in the gas chamber before. Driving a funny wagon or some big thing like that. Then when the 6 months were up, I got into the reserve. And I found out real quick that they got a lot of mechanics, but they only got, didn't get any cooks they needed. So I volunteered to be a cook. But still, I'm on the bottom of number 3. So, needless to say, a couple of transfers in a year and a half, and I am a sergeant running the mess hall for the 44th Criminal Hospital in Madison. So I moved up quite quickly, and the armor became lots of fun. So the men, it was the intelligence and all that, right? And, pretty seldom, Jerry knows. He's quite forward with me, so he knows I know too much to put together. But, an active duty, that was the story. And I went to, basically, I was sent to the 44th, no, the 48th infantry over in Germany, as part of the 3rd Army Division, and I spent 3 years there. Quite a few rare experiences. And you roll with punches. My wife wasn't too happy with it, so I didn't say when I got home, I put it in my papers to get out. At that time I had 4 years in and plus a year in the reserves. So then I did another dumb thing. Should have been like Larry of the reserve, taking the reserve. I might have been major or lieutenant colonel. To get back to the Fayetteville, I think, you mentioned this Lieutenant Adams. Years later, I ran into him. He and I were in the same deal too. But for months, we didn't recognize each other. And then one day we did. And I said, I was working for him. And we laughed about that. Go down the street laughing about, Captain of the Nation walking down the street.
We call them post was now, we're asking to work it now, and, we're having a big time. But the nicest thing, I realized that, Adams and I got along well together, and, he happened to be black. Another officer I got along with, real well, was black, was my regional company commander. And his name was, Powell, George Potter. You know, Potter was his commander as a general by the time, we had all rotations in that. It was, you say the other, Paul was, he's performing. We had quite a good unit, a couple of generals out of it. But, the nicest part I found was, the black soldiers, I just had a natural way of working with them. And that's paid off a lot of my life, especially once you know that for about 20 years, I was, 20-some years, I was a landlord in the inner city and, worked with black people. It's been a wonderful experience. And that's it. Give you any advice. Get to know them, they're not bad people. Thank you.
I know this probably ran a little bit longer than we care, but today's day is worth it. And I'd be remiss if I didn't follow up with what Terry said earlier, that I think you mentioned that the sacrifices that these veterans have all made, and all those that are still serving and will get involved and probably serve long after we're not here. But we want to thank you all because the sacrifices that you've made. We can't even begin to understand them. So thank you all for what you've done, and thank you for being
I've got one or two sentences from everybody that can't be here, so I'm just gonna go through those. And one of the things we had said, limited to 2 or 3 minutes. Guys serving 22 years and 28 years and even 2 years, it's hard to put in 2 minutes, So I'm gonna go through this real quick. I called everybody yesterday, got some tips on. I did get a hold of Walt Wachowski. Walt was a former president. Walt is also one of them guys I used to ask John Seymour and Carl Trapp and whether they fought for the North or the South. And Carl said yesterday he was a Teddy Roosevelt. He was one of the Rough Riders. So Carl's always in a good spirit. But Tony Bailey, Tony said he was hospitalized for the first 3 months with a bleeding ulcer. This is when he was in the Army. And consequently, his squad got sent to Vietnam. And he didn't go, but he served his entire career at Fort Campbell. Greg Goss said that it was a great experience when he was in the Army. He got his education paid for. And one of many guys they found out, they got married while they were in the Army. He was married in the Army, and then his oldest son was born in Plattsburgh, New York, while he was in he was stationed there. So he said he's really not a true Wisconsinite. They give him a hard time for that all the time. I called John Seymour, and as we were talking, I didn't realize John fought in the Korean War. And when I asked John if he wanted to share any experiences, he said, no, I spent a whole life trying to forget about them. And that says a lot. Carl was in the National Guard. Carl Trapp was also in the Army. John was a Marine, I should have said that. But Carl was in the National Guard. He was on a crew with a 155 millimeter cannon. And they would shoot that, but would shoot 10 to 12 miles away, Carl said. They never knew where it was landing. So one day him and some buddies decided, let's go see where these shells land. Well, there's all old trucks and beat up houses and stuff. Well, it turns out there was a lot of firing going on, and Carl didn't know it. So the MPs came and hauled him and his buddies off, and they went up serving KP duty, which is kitchen patrol. Tom Walker is celebrating his 50th year of being in Vietnam this year. I think it's going to this summer, June, whatever. But he was told me him and his wife Kathy were married in June of 1970, and he was shipped out less than 2 months later to Vietnam. They were married less than 2 months. Now, when you serve, you get what's called R&R. We know what that is. That's rest and relaxation. They send you for 3 or 4 days, kind of get your head straight. Just, let you kind of down. Well, they sent him to Hawaii, and his wife flew there. And remember, they were only married about 6 weeks. And I said, well, you were there for 4 days. What did you do? He goes, we made up for lost time. So, we know how that went. Tom Wagner was in the Air Force. He stationed 2 years in Germany. That's where he met Linda, wound up marrying Linda there. Interesting thing, he had a port job, but when the Olympics were in Munich, they had the Black September that year. And they hauled everybody out and gave him a rifle. And he goes, when he gave me the rifle, I was like, what's this? He called it a gun. And we know it's not called a gun, it's called a rifle. There's another story, we'll go on that with a live audience. But, so he said that he also had a good time. And he said what's nice, what he noticed now, in the last 3 or 4 years, how we recognize veterans with discounts and memberships. So they never did that before. They do that. I always use one when I go golfing. And then Bob Wenslow's in the Air Force. Now, Bob, if you see Bob these days, Bob is in tremendous shape. He is just, an ounce of fat on him. He runs, he skis, he plays tennis. And we're going to look at their pictures later on. And I looked at Bob's pictures, I don't even recognize him. He goes, when I was a cook in the Air Force, I weighed 55 pounds more than I do now. And so that was his kind of story. And the last one was my good buddy Ed Beth. Ed served in Korea like I did. He was there about 4 years earlier. And he said, the best thing that he got out of it, he became very, his faith was strengthened. He said, I was a religious person, but I really got involved more in various religions, other religions, when he was in Korea. And he said, that's the thing that he got most out of that. So those are the guys that couldn't be here. There's a couple other guys that didn't want to be recognized at all. And I can ask why, and I can, there's a lot of different reasons. But we do have quite a number of guys that Todd's, what's your name? Dan said, over 10% are veterans in this club. So with that, that concludes this portion. Oh, yeah. Well, we got some things to do later, but we asked John Klein. I asked for old pictures of guys. And they gave me these pictures, and we tried to get service pictures of when you were that age. And if we wouldn't have put their names on them, you wouldn't know who they are. Well, you want to thank John, and we're going to put this up in our cabinet. You want to just hold it up, Dan? Hold it up. Yeah, it's a picture of all of us. Dr. Anderson is not on there yet. We're going to work on that. But it's a picture of the guys that we're able to send pictures in. So you're welcome to come up and see it. It's beautiful. John did a great job. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Okay.
Real quick, I want to keep you going here, but I just want to, real quick, there's some thank yous here that we want to make sure we don't forget this morning. We want to thank our speakers committee for putting this together this morning. Jason from the district here for helping us set this up. Chris Morrison, I don't know where Chris went, but from Falls Cable Access. Wendy Sue for singing this morning, and Terry Marcoux, thank you for being here, and John Klein for what you did this morning. So, and again, let's thank our veterans again. Any updates on leaf breaking, John?
No, it started last weekend. We had about a handful of homes that are already done. We have the rest of it scheduled for the next couple of weeks. So seems to be going pretty well.
Good. Thank you. Real quickly, we have 2 birthdays this week. Rick Cole was on November 12th, and Bob Vaselli on November 16th. The drawing this week was for 75. Text drew Linda Podolsky's name. I didn't think Linda was here, so next week that goes to $80. So be here for that. If we could, then anything else for the good of the club?
Next week's speaker will be Students of the Month. They'll be back. When anybody watching this broadcast that wants to join, contact someone, get an application form. Students of the Month. Yes, Wendy.
This Sunday at American Legion Church 382, we're going to be a music for country and for my students. I've got 24 of them that will be playing in 2 different sessions. Space is obviously limited, but we still have like 2 or 3 spots available if you want to make a 4 or a 6 o'clock session at the Legion in the hall. Here's some music from them to appreciate all of the
Thank you. If we could stand for the presentation. Promise
yourself, be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind. God, health, happiness, and prosperity for every person you meet. To make all your friends feel that there's something in them. To look at the sunny side of everything and make our optimism come true. Think only the best, to work only for the best. To forget the mistakes of the past and press on to the greater achievements of the future. Where our beautiful confidence of all kinds of because so much time we put in ourselves and have no time to criticize others. We need to learn to worry to know our here, to sound and hear, and have a great presence of God. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh.